Good morning, sunshine. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Youngstown's Talk Channel. You got me and Kellen today talking about
Yes.
what is a very thick news weekend and lots of shit going on. So
Thick.
figured thick.
Thick.
You like that word thick?
Thick. Yeah.
Thick and moist. Two
Oh,
of the best
God.
words in the English language. All right. Anything on your mind before I get started?
I mean, I gotta fight with the state of Alabama later today. That's gonna be fun.
Okay.
Throwing down I've expressed before my hatred for the unemployment system. And there's been 2 times in my life years ago that I was laid off from a job and filed for unemployment. And one of them is still to this day haunting me because they screwed up on their end and they messed up information. And now they think I owe them money because they screwed up. And I don't. And I'm not paying it. And I'm about to go and yell at some people in the state of Alabama today. But
That sounds like a good plan to me as the official government hater of Youngstown's Talk Channel. I say revolt.
I should have
Revolt.
you call them.
Can
and
I?
You could be like, listen,
I'll
you
bulldog 'em.
sons of, yeah. You could be like, you are the worst.
All right. Let's talk about California.
California.
The riots. Have you been paying attention to what's happening over there?
Not a lot. I've heard that there is like this unrest, and I haven't had a moment to see like what's going on.
Yeah,
You can fill me in.
So we basically told all states that we're not messing around anymore with harboring illegal immigrants in this country. They're taxing to our system. They commit crimes. It's not fair to citizens of the United States to be victimized by people who aren't supposed to be here. And Joe Biden and that administration just let in millions of illegals because they wanted the pathway to citizenship for them so they can get more voters. And it was a great political strategy. But now Trump is undoing that by dismissing these people, getting them the hell out of the country, and rescuing some of these states against their will from what will inevitably destroy their systems because of how costly it is in lives and also in treasure to, for no good reason, just take people from other countries and give them the same benefits that a citizen has. Devalues what it means to become a American citizen. So anyway, ICE was doing, and I'm telling you, we sent a message to all these states that we are cracking down federally on the glut of people who are not supposed to be here. And so it's become this contentious fight between states that really like harboring these people for political reasons and the federal government who's like, no. So anyway, ICE was doing their thing in California, and they're going around and making arrests. If you listen to Tom Homan, he tells you exactly what he's going to do. They're going to investigate. They're going to find people who are not supposed to be here. They're starting with the criminal elements, the people that are in trafficking and bringing drugs in and, hurting the system.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing raids and taking these people and deporting them. That's just, he already said that's what he's going to do. And that's exactly what he's doing. Well, anyway, California, because they like their illegal immigrants so much, are defending and giving them sanctuary in their state. So ICE is operating. And then a whole contingent, like thousands of people, protested the detaining of these illegal immigrants. And there's a federal building that they all decided, and this is all orchestrated. Outside money wants to see chaos, so they
NGOs.
they buy a protest and then they create the chaos, and so they get the news story and whatever. But anyway, so these protesters. First Amendment right, you can assemble and you can hold your sign and you can chant and whatever. But they got a little bit more aggressive and they started destroying property. They started throwing things at the ICE agents. And so second step was we had to protect. It's a federal building, is where the Federal Detention Center. Trump called in the National Guard. And the National Guard went to the federal building to defend the ICE agents and give support to the federal agency. And Gavin Newsom, the slick salesman from California, said this is an overreach by the federal government. Sending in the National Guard troops was a state sovereignty, and this was a punch in the eye or a finger and a thumb in the eye for states' rights. He said, we the police got this, right?
Yeah.
And the federal government's like, no, we've seen Los Angeles when the police got it, and it doesn't. They just give them
got it.
Yeah, they don't. They just give them free reign to destroy property and assault law enforcement and whatever. So they're not a very brilliantly run from a policy standpoint about how they treat people who are breaking the law. So if we walk down the street and we're holding signs, they'll pretty much leave us alone. But if I start breaking windows and lighting things on fire, police will say, oh, that part not legal, and I will go to jail because I've gone beyond protest to riot, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing the California Highway Patrol got involved because the protesters went on the 101, right, which is a major freeway that runs through California, and they blocked traffic and they stopped cars, right? So the CHP went into operations mode and pushed these people back off of the interstate and then diverted traffic around it. But they caused these protests. I don't know why when they have a problem with something, they take innocent people and victimize them for their
like
cause.
A hostage situation.
Exactly what it is. Okay, so it's so long that California just allows them to create hostage situations like that. The federal government has to intervene. It's an insurrection. They are going beyond what a protest is supposed to be.
Yeah, because I think they know to simply protest is going to probably get them nowhere. It's not like they don't have people that are against what they're doing. Like there are some people that are like, let the ICE come in. We think this is a good thing. I think they know that it's like, oh, we better really amp this up and cause an issue that they have to address in order to sort of, I don't know, get what they want or shed the light on it that they want. I don't know. But
if that's your purpose, is to further your cause, you don't do it by pissing off everybody.
Yes.
Unless the chaos is the point. Chaos is the point. So for instance, another couple pallets load of cinder blocks were dropped off in the protest area. So what? Okay, this blows my mind. So if you have someone that delivers bricks so that your protesters can throw them at police and break buildings and whatever, and if this happens every time a protest happens, we can't read the shipping label and find out who ordered bricks to be delivered in the middle of a street. How does that even freaking work? Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why the objection to the calling of the National Guard, like what is in it for the politicians to allow their city to be destroyed by protesters, right? And then blaming Trump. The escalation is being blamed on Trump, not the people who are allowing it to happen, not to the protesters themselves, not to the people who are shipping bricks. It's like Trump escalated this. But what the frick?
Yeah, because the people that are all for the madness are the voters of the person allowing it to happen. So
the enablers, absolutely.
Of course do this. Of course do that. It's all that guy's fault. When you're just as corrupt because you're allowing the mayhem and the destruction and the harm to people so that you look a certain way to people that you think can benefit you later. You don't actually think it's going to help anything. It's clearly not. It's clearly out of hand. And rather than saying, you know what, this is out of hand, could be very, very dangerous.
Well, what benefits the Democrats right now is if other cities, like you have a template, right? Let's get LA rolling. And then let's hope Chicago does it next. And then New York does it next. Mm-hmm. And so the people who want to, what happened in 2020? The BLM riots. So if it's not the ICE riots or the BLM riots, it'll be another one. But this point is a strategy, a campaign strategy for Trump to be sort of like neutered in what he can accomplish if you can get civil unrest going at the same time. So be it whatever the most convenient reason for destruction in those urban cities or urban areas of the country, that's a strategy. So I have no doubt that they want it to almost like the at the Capitol during January 6th. If you don't want something to happen, you do certain things like you keep barricades up and you lock the doors and you call in the National Guard. If you want it to happen, you say no National Guard. No barriers. So in this case, if you really wanted riots and this thing to really pop off, you would do what Gavin Newsom is freaking doing. So
yeah, it's funny. Like when the January 6th thing happened, everyone's like, well, why can't Trump be more assertive and tell people to calm down and not be violent, not do anything? Has Gavin Newsom done that? Has he said, hey guys?
Well,
I
I push back on that because that's a ruse, right?
Yeah.
It's like a wink thing. Like, don't be violent. There's some cinder blocks over there. Hope you don't pick up those cinder blocks and destroy things. So he has to say, let's do this the right way. We don't have any tolerance for violence. And then the police are like, oh, a burning car? Stand down. Let's not do anything about that. Okay, no violence, huh? If you had a real hardcore edge against violence, then you would put out the violence and not like make it super easy for violence to happen. That's why I don't trust any of it. They want the chaos and they're going to push it into bigger cities. So over the summer of BLM came from now is this summer of ICE protests. Plain and simple.
Lord, are they still kind of crazy right now? Or
well, I didn't see the news this morning. I was kind of watching it a couple hours last night and I'm like, this is the setup. Turns nightfall and there's going to be buildings burning. They set fires to cars during the day and like I said, block traffic. So it felt like it was escalating, quite a bit.
Gosh.
So, but I don't know if anybody listening out there knows if there were what happened in the overnight and fill us in, that would be helpful. Carter says, yet CNN and MSNBC claim that it was a mostly peaceful protest as cars were burning and they closed one of the busiest cities in the country. I watched both Fox and MSNBC and CNN for a little bit just to kind of compare what was going on.
Different?
Oh man. It almost, when I get that, and I'm a little disappointed in Fox News. I know why they're doing it. They're taking, instead of it just being, I wanted to see the footage and the reporting of what's going on. I really didn't want commentary at that part.
Oh,
but all of them want to
all commentary.
The whole thing. And one wants to blame one side and I don't want that from my news sources. So I checked out pretty quick from the commentators, muted them, and just kind of watched the footage. But they said the same thing about the BLM stuff. That's just part of the template now.
Yeah.
You got to do your own conversions.
Yeah, I was looking at a site when I was recording for another job I have on the radio, different websites and things that you could find to get information on. And I was doing something like celebrity birthdays. And there's a site I go to see, what celebrities' birthdays today? And I talk about it. Well, on the site, one of the celebrity birthdays last week was, what's her name? Breonna Taylor? Am I saying her name right?
I have no idea.
She was the younger Black woman that was killed when police raided an apartment looking for somebody. I think it's Breonna Taylor. And there's a little write-up about how she died. Wrongful death caused by police. Known in the same vein as George Floyd, who was also wrongfully murdered and all this stuff. And I'm just like, can we find a source of information that is what happened and not pushing an agenda and not pushing? And I used to say that about Fox News and everybody. They all do it. It's a talk show. It's not a news source. Like, it's all their opinions and it's like this. It's like talking about how they feel about it, giving their opinion, how their views are. Where is just the source of information that is just what happened with no emotion tied to it?
Focus group said you wouldn't watch it, so I'm not going to give it to you. That's what it is.
That's very true.
So here's what I want to give homework to our listeners, and that's
School's out, but you got homework.
Teacher Joe. This is a good time to read Federalist Papers number 10. Federalist 10. Yes. And have you read any of them?
No.
Okay. So America was being sort of ruled by the post-Revolutionary War, structure. And a bunch of our founders were devising a system of government for us that's better than how it was being constructed. But they had to appeal to these colonies, these states as they were at the time, and sell the idea of what a republic would do and why we do. And then what most important, the Federalist Papers gives you the best insight into the minds of the people who constructed this country. And so when people reference back, not only do you get like a paragraph of what it is, the feeling behind it, because remember, they're doing their sales pitch. They're running huge articles in the newspapers that say, the public, here's what we're planning and here's why we're planning it. And reading the insights of John Madison and the people who were really putting the engineering behind how we were going to work. Federalist 10 is congruent with what we're experiencing now. Okay. So it's about factions. Okay. And so they, can I read a little bit of it? You guys get bored if the factions,
don't be bored if it's history class.
Okay. James Madison. And the wording in these things are kind of, I don't know. You have to dig through the word usage at a certain point. So it's terribly boring to hear read aloud. But I'm going to break that rule here. And I'm just going to read you the beginning of this. Okay? Among the numerous advantages promised by a well-constructed union, none deserves to be more accurately developed than its tendency to break and control the violence of faction. The friend of popular governments never find himself so much alarmed for their character and fate as when he contemplates their propensity to this dangerous vice. He will not fail, therefore, to set a due value on any plan which, without violating the principles to which he is attached, provide the proper cure for it. The instability, injustice, and confusion introduced into the public council have, in truth, been mortal diseases under which popular governments have everywhere perished, as they continue to be the favorite and fruitful topics from which the adversaries to liberty derive their most specious declamations. The valuable improvements made by the American constitutions on the popular models, both ancient and modern, cannot certainly be too much admired, but it would be unwarrantable partiality to contend that they have as effectually obliviated the dangers on this side as were wished and expected. Okay, so he goes into the pros and cons of what factions do and the human beings and our fallibility start to say people get impassioned, right? And they want change. And I'll read you this one part here. Julie said they were targeting criminals and gangs. They would be in South Central LA if that were the case. Instead, they are in neighborhoods, schools, churches, at Home Depots and businesses that rely on immigrant labor. They stage an immigration appointment for migrants going through the citizen process and arrested them when they showed up. That's good. I love those stings. Like when you take a criminal and then you send them a letter that said like, you won $1 million. And then rather than going to their home and busting down the door, they come to you thinking they're going to claim $1 million. They leave in handcuffs. I freaking love those. These are criminals, Julie. So whatever strategy to get them out of the population and on their way back to where they came from, the better.
Staged an so they told them, come to your appointment for citizenship, and then arrested them.
Boom. Gone.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, so these are the two methods, and they suck, both of them. And that's why the engineering that is our Constitution, the best piece of technology that Americans have is that document, I'm telling you. There are, again, two methods by removing the causes of faction. The one, by destroying the liberty, which is essential to its existence. The other, by giving to every citizen the same opinions, same passions, and same interests. It could never be more truly than the first remedy that is worse than the disease. Liberty is to faction what air is to fire, an ailment without which it instantly expires. But it could be less folly to abolish liberty, which is essential to political life because it nourishes faction. Now, they're talking about the factions of the controls of different political parties. But you can take factions and start saying, you know, we separate ourselves into different groups, and then we war against it. And I think what I believe in is noble, and you think what yours is noble. And then we fight, both thinking that we have the upper hand on virtue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the people who are protesting think that the immigrants are just people that just want to do jobs. So they think they've got a noble cause, right? It's just so happens that when you talk and nobody listens to you, right, you get mad that people aren't taking you serious, because those people want the tyranny of whatever they feel to be enacted. The problem is that it's not universal, where you can't give right to somebody, right, over the other. And that's where the factions are deteriorating. Where compromise is where you bring two people together that can't get anything done without compromise. And then I'm forced to say my piece, you're forced to say your piece. Neither of us get to win, but we have to then make concessions with each other. That was the brilliance of the document. It means that nobody gets their way is the purpose of the founding documents. Julie says, that is sick, Joe. They are trying to do the right thing and get arrested for it. These are not dangerous people. I mean, that's an opinion, but if if somebody who is not supposed to be here, someone who broke the law to be able to get here, they're already causing a crime by being here in the first place.
Were these people, I wonder, like, why hadn't before this, but if there truly was this sort of ruse of come to your citizenship appointment and then we arrested them, why didn't they have it already? Like, are these people that have been here a while? They never did it. They never went through the process. And now they're like, oh crap, now they're about to kick me out. I better go do it now. Is that the case? Because that even sits a little differently than just, someone trying to do the right thing and they, got punished for it.
Well, and that's the one faction that's trying to frame these people as, altar boys and pure whatever.
Yeah.
I got the feeling I got is they were starting with the deportation for people who have committed additional crimes first and foremost. So they're not going to people who haven't done anything in addition to the crime of just coming into this country. So these people that are showing up, they might be good contributors, paying their taxes, got jobs and whatever, but they've committed additional crimes that, say deportation is on your manifest.
Yeah, to kind of say that, they just showed up and got arrested and that was
no, there are other things.
Yeah, and maybe Julie, they only told that to people who were being.
This is for you. The dude, that guy that got deported, and they were like this guy from, trying to paint him as just a father and whatever.
Yeah,
he was
a bad dude.
He was in charge of a gang trafficking ring. So you were absolutely wrong on the poster child for, improper deportation. So your angle on this, I know you're going to be empathetic, and I know you're going to, think that this is a travesty that these people are. I have a little bit more trust. The people that are being deported absolutely deserve to be. And I'm right so far, and you're wrong so far. So,
and here's my thing. Like, obviously, there's some feelings that I think people want to have if they feel like someone's getting a raw deal. Like, they were friendly. They were in this country. They were trying to better themselves. They were taking steps to stay here and get citizenship. And then we grabbed the rug out from under them and kicked them out and deported them. Are there situations that are truly like that? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. But here's the thing. It's up against a dangerous, violent murderer. If one gets swept up in a deportation along with the other, what are we looking at here? How sad it is that we kicked somebody out. Okay.
But why
would
would
they come back? Sure. But you also get a dangerous, violent murderer out.
So, but I don't even understand the logic why you're defending that part. So if you had cancer, right, and we're talking about chemotherapy for you, and you're like, well, don't do the chemotherapy. There's going to be some good cells that get killed along with it. And I'm going to say, no, you don't understand. The cancer is going to kill you. Yes, there are going to be good cells caught up in the therapy.
Yeah.
And you're defending to the end. You can't get over the removal of the cancer because good, healthy cells are going to get caught up in the de-diseasing. I'm more like, okay, well, this cancer is not something that's caused by the human being. This problem was caused by people. I hold accountable the people who put the cancer there in the first place, not the fact that people who have to clean it up are going to, in the sweep, are going to get some innocence in there that we're going to have to make right on the backside.
Yeah. If you are the family member of somebody who was brutally attacked and murdered by somebody who was here illegally, do you think that at all compares to looking at someone else who got kicked out and it was, aw, but they're a nice guy and they got kicked out. Aw, that sucks. But this is tragic and they're never coming back and their family will never get over that. This sucks, but you can come back eventually. This is not permanent. This is not a tragedy. It is, this sucks. It's going to be a little more inconvenient for you. We'll get to you. This is horrific. So if you can avoid this by making it suck a little bit for someone else, I'm sorry, it's no contest to me.
Right. You are literally advocating for the crime, when we have elections, the fraud that happens because of the taxing on our systems and hospitals and benefits. You're advocating for all of that for the sake of the one or two, the handful of people who are the casualties, the unintended consequences of it. So, and when you weigh them out as far as which you're saying, okay, I don't want anybody caught in the net, right? And so we're going to just tolerate all of those other things. Somebody's got to see those other things as being the cancer that it really is in our society. And
yeah, and it's just like if people say, oh, well, benefits of innocent, deserving people are getting cut because all these other people are abusing it. If we do nothing and we allow the abusers to abuse it, do you honestly think the good, innocent people who deserve it are going to have anything left?
It goes away, right?
Yes.
The benefits destroyed because of the exploitation by people who shouldn't even be here. I mean, your kid gets murdered by someone who wouldn't be in this country, and the easy solve is to make sure, like, your kid could get easily as killed by someone who belongs here.
God forbid.
Who belongs here and a citizen, but that would be an easier justification than someone who's not supposed to be here anyway.
Yeah. Julie says they arrested one guy right out of citizenship court who was there for his final citizenship. Pam Bondi has had to walk back her statements about Garcia. We don't know what he was into, and we never would have unless he got his due process. Here's the thing, though, and this is where, like, when Joe says, he's glad to see people get kicked out, it's we don't know. We don't know that this guy maybe couldn't have done this before now, and maybe he put it off. We don't know if everybody who got kicked out was innocent or guilty. We don't know any of that. But here's what we do know. Here is factual information that there are illegal criminals killing innocent people here. They are murderous monsters that have brutally, and I'm not saying took them out easily and quick. I mean tortured and brutally, horrifically killed people. And you're asking people like Joe to look away from that because you might inconvenience someone else. You might inconvenience them. It's sad. We kicked them out of the country. They had to move. Now the process might be harder to come back in with their family. They might have some tears and leave. And we're not saying that we don't have a little empathy for them. That sucks. But the alternative.
Yeah, right. And that I'm certain that they will right the wrongs, that people who got caught up in that, they'll catch their problems and mistakes. And that's where, if you took the two factions, the people who there was a quote that I heard this weekend about sentience and empathy. Like, if you agree with the person, you're much more likely to have empathy for something, and if you disagree with them, you much likely have prove sentience, right? And so if the two factions can come together, then the people getting rid of these people could raise their objections and say, hey, you know what? We understand you want to get rid of these people. Let's make sure it's done in a way that, if we're going to make some mistakes. Here's the plan. We're going to make a mistake. So you hold the advocacy for cleaning up anybody that gets caught in that, right? That's your power, or your position of power. And then these are the people who are like, we're going to get people out of here. We're going to defer to these people when somebody's in that gray area or whatever. But I still believe the people that they're dealing with right now are the worst of the worst, the big offenders, the people who have made the biggest mistakes. I don't think we've gotten to the people who are here but really haven't done anything. I think in the end, once we get rid of all the criminal element, Then we're going to find a much better way of getting citizenship extended to people who knew how to follow the rules and they align themselves with our culture instead of being destroyers and, wanting us to become more like Mexico or wherever they came from.
Krista says the right has years of propaganda to make sure that the people at the forefront of your mind are the murderers, etc., which justifies your opinion. Listen to the language that is used to talk about anyone in the country illegally.
Yeah, and the left has the same kind of propaganda that these people are all altar boys that just pay their taxes and follow the rules. Guess where the truth is? Right in the middle. So you take both into consideration. So you're like, all right, Joe, you're on that side. Get rid of all the, I agree with you, all murderers and traffickers and whatever, get them out of here. And like, hey, there are some, I'll give you some of your side. That's what I'm saying. Like the concessions in the middle are where it's at, but each one of the fringe factions are holding their ground, and the right wants to make them all murderers and the left wants to make them all altar boys. And it's not the truth either way.
Yeah. I mean, the fact is our country is, and I think anybody in the world would realize this, our country is having an issue right now with immigrants and people coming in illegally, and it's high tension and it's under a microscope. Do you not then think anybody attempting to come right now would say to themselves, I better be extra careful. I better mind my P's and Q's. I better do what I have to do because I know that this is really on high alert right now. This country's having an issue with this immigration policy. Like if you were to go to, I don't know, Canada, and Canada was in the middle of all of this, would you not think to yourself, oh, there could be some there could be some headaches with this process?
It's a deterrent. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so like maybe keep that in mind when you're trying to come over here. And if you find that it was difficult or you got kicked out or, hey, I didn't quite get to this and then they kicked me out. Okay, well, try again. You need to understand that we also have really, really, really bad people to deal with, and we're trying to get them out so that you're safe too, so that you can come here with your family for a better life and not be murdered by somebody who was not here with good intentions.
Yeah, it was getting bad, and everybody knew that our systems were going to get destroyed because of the influx in how many immigrants, that the Democrats made it super easy. I think all of these sanctuary cities are going to face judgment on this. They're going to hit, they're going to lose funding. You saw that California is considering seceding, right? So Gavin Newsom said that he's got a big problem with the outgoing tax dollars that California pays into the federal system. He then was talking about defrauding the federal government by not sending tax payments from citizens of California, which means that then he loses the protections and the participation in the federal government if they secede. California's talked about seceding. They've got an economy that makes they think.
This does sound like something I've heard.
Yeah,
before.
Texas has thought about it a couple times.
Yeah.
Any economies and population densities think that they can make it on their own without the help of the federal government. When in reality, California pays out more than they receive because they are part of this country. And so because they have all the people.
Can you imagine people in states like that? If all of a sudden your leaders were like, guess what? We're no longer part of the states anymore. And if you want to cross the border to go into the United States, AKA the rest to see your family, now you're like going into a different country and all the process and headaches that is.
Well, they would probably be a territory like Puerto Rico is, where it's a friendly kind of thing. It wouldn't be treated as its own separate country. It would just be an external,
it would still, I'm sure, be messy.
But the Republicans would love that. If all of California lost their electors, right? They lost their House of Representatives and their senators. That would be big for the political landscape. So Republicans are like, yes, secede. But it used to, California to me was where the innovation hub was. All of the tech companies were there. There was just so much money for R&D and experimentation. And now it's kind of diffused, where they lost a lot of their heavy hitters because of taxation and crime. They were hurting. Like, I don't know that California will survive on its own now. Like, you asked me this 20 years ago, and California could have totally broken off and been their own economy, probably even been able to have their own military and whatever, but they're on the downslope of growth and prosperity. So they need us a lot more than we need them today. Let's see, where was the National Guard on January 6, 2021? They were on speed dial for LA. So that's interesting, because the framing for January 6th is that the National Guard was offered and they declined the offering of the National Guard, right? So keep that in your brain. They didn't just send them there because the mayor of DC said no, Pelosi said no. And now in LA, right, the National Guard was sent there and the mayor or the governor wasn't asked. So why was permission granted? Now here, the argument you're going to hear today throughout the news is that the National Guard was sent there to protect ICE agents, federal agents, and the federal detention facility, which is a federal building. They were protecting a federal deal. Well, on January 6th, right, that was also a federal building, and those were a political campaign. So you could make the argument, why didn't Trump just send the National Guard to DC if everybody knew it was going to be a tinderbox of something? So that's a fair argument.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, Julie says, Joe, quit being naive. Do you really think all the thousands of people that have been arrested are bad criminals?
Yeah, most. A majority of them have been. I think I have respect for law enforcement to do their job the right way. And I think they targeted people with records, people that were known criminals.
Julie, I'm just curious, and whatever your answer is, that's fine. It's your opinion. But I'm curious, would you rather allow the hardened, dangerous, murdering criminals to stay so that no one that you consider to be a good person or innocent gets to stay too? Would you rather have the bad ones stay so the others don't get kicked out? Just so we can lay that down.
But Julie, you have to give me the benefit, the upside of taking that position, willing to take the entire cost of criminal activity. So either you're naive and you think all of them are lily white and there aren't any murderers in there, it's just propaganda. Now that I would go with, but that is suspending a lot of common sense to know, you got to think that even if you think it's a low percentage, it would be good to get the low percentage gone. Right.
Yeah.
And if you have 20 million people that are here illegally, and so far maybe they've gotten rid of, 200,000 of them, you got to assume that they're going for the 1% at this point. They're the biggest offenders in there. So.
Yeah. Carter says very few now are trying to cross the border. Word is out. That's
deterrence.
True. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dennis says the left wants another summer of love where they burn liberal cities to the ground.
Yep, that is the template where you watch, and the spillover in other cities are going to be the same. Anywhere that ICE is operating in all of our big cities now.
Yeah.
And so you could very well see in New York or Chicago, start to flame up.
Here's another thing that just gets me too. The people that are claiming to love everyone and accept everyone and be nice to everyone are the most violent, are the most hateful. I saw someone on Facebook the other day that is liberal, is left, has been fighting for every social injustice you can think of. And they literally made a comment about, it was like Trump and Elon or whoever getting killed and dying and just get them killed or something like that. And I'm like, oh, how accepting of you and loving of you and nonviolent of you. And I'm just like, you are the worst. The party that is accepting of everyone is the least accepting of everyone.
I'm telling you, Federalist 10, once a faction is hatched and the people that are opposing your passion, you think you're the noble ones. So you think everybody else are the demons of the world. Yeah. And so killing a demon is a virtuous act, right?
Yeah.
And so this is a mass delusion of what human beings do when they join a faction and they give up their own, instincts and common sense, and they defer to the faction to do all of their Yeah.
I saw a quote recently and it was something, I don't know for word, but it was something along the lines of like, it's futile to attempt to argue with someone who is currently suffering from a sense of moral superiority.
100%. And that's why these founding documents, if you can get through them, are so important, because you picture like what they were dealing with. People who just saw tyranny firsthand. You don't have to hear us hearing about tyranny and reading the stories. We've never experienced tyranny unless you grew up in, one of these communist states or these shithole countries that we often, refer to. But so now a 20-year-old just coming out of college, taking steps towards tyranny isn't a scary thing for them, versus like seeing the symptoms of tyranny, like watching, different things of your liberties erode. I got a question for you. I just thought about this weekend and want to see what your thoughts are. So we have certain liberties that are, in the first, we got the Second Amendment, the First Amendment. Now, do you think that the First Amendment should have some responsibilities attached to it like the Second Amendment does? So you have the right to carry a firearm, but because it's a weapon that can hurt and cause damage, you have to be licensed, you have to take safety requirements and all that. The First Amendment means that you can say anything you want, and you can be irresponsible with your words that could hurt other people. Do you think we should have a First Amendment safety course so that people who protest know what the lines are and know what is a protest and what is gone too far, which would be a riot or, fire in a theater kind of thing? Would you be comfortable with it?
Well, I mean, there's a difference between like educating or having maybe this safety course. Obviously, you can say whatever you want, but you are free to say what you want. You are not free from the consequences of it. And I think people are confused by that a lot. We're not going to like lock you up for saying something, but something can come from what you said and it may be bad.
If you do it poorly, right?
Yes. Ideally, it would be great to teach people what speaking has done. You could look all throughout history, and saying things has caused turmoil or detriment and things of that nature. But not everybody does. Not everybody looks at it that way. To me, in an attempt to try to put any sort of guidelines on someone's free speech, I think is just going to fall on deaf ears on the person that wants to push whatever they're trying to push.
Use the Second Amendment. Okay. So you are responsible. You yourself are responsible for the output of the gun. Yeah. Right. And so do people not follow the gun safety laws? Sure. Yeah. Right. But they're not intended to quell criminal behavior. They're intended for the responsible use of that thing, knowing that there are repercussions for using your right. There's a responsibility on what happens on the barrel end of that weapon, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the words thing. There's no responsibilities tied to in training, right? Tied to using your words in a way that's irresponsible.
I mean, what about you have things like slander and defamation of character where you could face very real consequences.
Well, yeah, but when did you get your training? Right?
Yeah.
If you
I guess just
if you buy a gun, you are forced to take the training to know the rules of that gun. Where
are you
with yes. Still. You have to take a gun safety class. Absolutely.
Everybody who buys a gun has to?
I did. Like, I don't know. I can't.
I mean, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
The responsibilities of having a permit to have a weapon, I believe you have to take a gun safety course.
To have a permit, I guess. Yes.
Yeah.
But I think can't someone just like walk in and buy a gun?
You could buy a gun.
I feel like that's a thing, which is scary.
But the exercise of that, hunting or carrying it around with you requires a gun. So if you're in your house, you don't have to have any training. Okay. You can talk to your friends and whatever. But if you use that in public, you have to have training to know what the distances between what's appropriate and responsible and what's inappropriate and could be harmful. I'm just floating this idea out there to see if
it's ideal for sure. Ideal there should be.
Right. And like you said, if there are repercussions, but you've never been trained on them, right? Then you could inadvertently break laws that you didn't even know were laws because there's no proper training on what is protected speech and what's not. You can go on social media right now and people claim First Amendment on things that aren't even close to First Amendment things.
Yeah.
Still, people don't have a clue. They're using their words, right?
Yeah.
Irresponsibly.
You always see these people that like said something and then they got fired and everybody would cries, freedom of speech. They're allowed to say that. You are allowed to say that. Nobody's throwing them in jail, but you're not free from consequences.
Okay. Just floating that idea. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I'm one way or another, but I was just thinking about it and figured we'd talk through it. Why? And I think I missed one thing from Julie back here. The college students here on visas, terrible criminals. Well, that is when you're here on a visa, you are here at the, what's that called? At the pleasure of the
privilege.
The pleasure of the immigration system, right? You're giving a blessing to come in here and enjoy our university. So if we can handpick the people who are here enjoying our universities, if somebody comes and say, like, let's just say someone was shit talking your family, right? Would you permit them, like maybe they're around you, they're okay and whatever, but they hate the shit out of you? Would you want that person in your country if they were a shit talker about and hated you and whatever?
No.
So if you had a student that was enjoying the pleasure of the immigration system to be able to come here, that hates this country and is trying to bring external views to America, they're obviously not a friend of this country. So the deportation is one thing. That's a legal process where we get those criminals out. Denying permission is not deportation, right? If your permission is denied, then you can't be here any longer, and then you will go back to wherever you was.
So they're seeing an innocent college student just trying to come to school and better themselves and be an American, versus the idea of a college student that's here and protesting and talking bad about the government and trying to cause
pretending like they're a real citizen where they can air their grievances. I mean, here's my recommendation. If you're here, right, on invitation, put your head down, go get your freaking education, and then do something with it. Apply for, formal status later on, or take the education and go back to another country, but keep your head down and nobody will mess with you. But if you bring your ideologies here and you want America to conform with your ideologies, like that's one sure way to get that invitation rescinded. So no, they're not criminals. Totally different deal. Let's see. There are responsibilities with the First Amendment because there are consequences. But I'm talking proper training. So people who do wield their words publicly should be given a course on doing it appropriately, so they know the difference between irresponsible and responsible use.
Yeah, like we talk about like defamation and slander and things of that nature. Are you saying then how would somebody know? Like until you're sued for slander or you heard about it.
That's right. We can't let the law be for the first suggestion that you can do things irresponsibly.
Yeah. I heard a saying one time that says it's really difficult being a kid because you don't know you broke a rule until you're punished.
Exactly. So, that's exactly right. So if I go out in the woods and I'm shooting and I'm in a place where it's illegal within city limits to discharge a firearm, right? I could either look into the rules going into it, knowing, have proper training on it, or I can wait till I get arrested when I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I'm just shooting my gun, and this happened to me, by the way. So I went to an area and sighting in my rifle, and I was within city limits, and I got arrested. So
you got arrested?
I did. I got
with handcuffs?
No, I didn't get handcuffs. No, it was pretty obvious that I was just sighting in a rifle, and I wasn't, picking off people or whatever. But
wow.
Let's see. Krista said I think we did that one already. Why is our top attorney general investigating a journalist that said Trump and Stephen Miller are haters? I don't know. I haven't seen much about it.
Yeah, why are they?
I don't know.
Maybe they did something bad and also said
but
Trump and
I
Stephen
would
Miller
not be
haters.
surprised if the institutions of lawfare are still being used by the current administration.
Yep.
And I'm not outraged because the precedence has been set. if you're an enemy of the executive. Now, the only real objection would be, let's remove the executive overreach where they can't use their legal position to go after people who disagree with them. That's the real conversation.
But then the moment you take a step towards that, you get, I can't believe you're not listening to judges and you're not letting judges do their job and you're trying to overthrow so that you can be in power. And it's like, no, really, I just don't want people to use the judicial system as a weapon.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that executive overreach is a real thing. And I think every administration will use it because the previous administration, but it's going to take an adult to say no more of it. Let's codify this so the things that were being abused by the executive branch no longer could be used. And we're an administration who's not going to do it. But so long that you were cool with it with the last administration doing it because there were celebrations on the fruits of that misuse, you can't now all of a sudden be outraged by it once it's going in the other direction.
Yep. Oh gosh, there's more.
Compulsory education is all the training we have for free speech, but education as a whole does not do a good job of making people coming out of college common sense, good wielders of the education system. So I don't have a lot of hope in the mandatory part.
Krista has an interesting comment. Also, speaking can't directly end a life. A gun can.
It can't?
Can't it though?
I don't know. Speech has ended lots of lives. And
obviously a gun is far more direct. I see her point. But speech
can end lives, can ruin lives.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dennis says there's no longer concealed carry laws anymore. You can opt in, but I assume everyone is holding one day. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Krista says people who come here on a visa for college come here because of the freedom in America. So they get wrapped up in the protests and their opportunity to think freely is now cut short because of who the president is.
They're wrapped up in a protest and their opportunity to think freely is now cut short because of who the president is.
Okay, like there's some validity to that, but the freedoms that are you got to think of the reason why you wouldn't want people that are used to a different culture, right? That come here and all of a sudden can start bringing that culture here. You left it because it sucks, right? You don't have the freedoms, but you're going to take some of the elements of a sucky ass culture and protest on behalf of the things that suck, therefore bringing the suckiness to where you're at. So you'd almost want to insulate those people from being able to take something that's nice and pure, right? Mm-hmm. And then just ruin it by bringing the institutions that ruin the place that you came from. It's common sense.
And again, I'm still kind of waiting for Julie's answer on, are you willing to overlook people here causing issues, causing mayhem, killing, trafficking, all of the really bad guys? Are you willing to overlook that and allow them to stay so that nobody you think should be here gets kicked out? Because again, I still feel like you can look at instances where maybe there are peaceful students here just trying to get an education. Maybe there are students here that are protesting and causing trouble, and they're part of an organization that is trying to push an agenda. Maybe there is somebody here that raised a family, worked, made friends, is contributing to society, and they got kicked out because they didn't have the proper credentials. Maybe there's somebody here who brutally murdered somebody or is trafficking children. Are you willing to allow both so that one does not have to leave? And I think that is really what the whole immigration debate and fight has come down to, is some people say, don't be mean, don't kick out people that are contributing and being nice people. And others are like, that sucks for them, but these ones murdered someone and I can't let that slide. Where are you on the...
All right, so in the sea of protesters, typically they were holding flags of Mexico, right? Mm. And so the communication between the people who want to either, empathize with your struggle, you got to get the idea that these are just people that want to join the American system and contribute to what we have, versus somebody who wants to bring the baggage from where they're coming from and convert your house into their house. And when you see the Sea of Mexico, like, what are we celebrating? Like, would you, if someone was at a protest and they were holding a Mexican flag in the United States, should they be deported? Do you think those Mexican flag waivers, or at least given an American flag and say, at least pretend to be in support of this country rather than?
I mean, yeah, just waving the flag of their country. I'm like, whatever.
What's it communicating though? What are you trying to say by?
If they're, it depends on the situation they're doing it. You know, if they just have it on their house because that's their background, fine. But if they're actively protesting something,
what are they saying? Like, if I were to look,
saying I like my country better.
If a cartoonist I say, here's an image of this person standing on a car with smoke behind them, holding the Mexican flag. Write what this is without knowing the context. They would say, oh, Mexico just conquered a city by destroying something. So is this a soldier of Mexico knowing that they can, use the immigration system once they're there, conquer it within, and they hoisted their flag on the car?
Yeah, because at the very least, if you see someone protesting, and we say it about Americans, when I hear a born and raised American citizen complain endlessly, I feel the need to be like, you don't have to be here, right? You're free to go if it gets that bad. If I see someone come here and then complain endlessly and protest, my question is, then why are you here?
Just the door's that way.
Yeah,
because
you don't have to put up
because
with
the Democrats held treats out in front of them. So they might hate everything about being an American except for the benefits of being an American. So take all the good, just like any scammer exploiter, right? There's a honeypot sitting there.
I want all of that, but I want the cell phone, I want the stuff, and the hotel room, and the money, and the health care, and
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Give me all the
freedom of speech.
Give me the benefits, and then I'm going to bring corrupt government to you, and fentanyl, and gangs, right? Let's bring some of that here. The end result is then the United States becomes the mini corrupt country that you came from. So I'd prefer, like you said, the exit door is there. If the country sucks, so if you part of the staving off of the problem of incoming is, yes, you needed to have a wall of some kind to keep people from just walking over. But the second part of that is all of the niceties that you get once you get here. Because if now you come to a country that you absolutely hate, but you get no benefits, you're not staying here and you're not even going to want to come. So you dry that up, give zero incentive to come here and take advantage of the honeypot.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see all the people that are like from other countries and they're here and they're waving their flags and maybe they're rioting or they're part of these big protests. I want to be like, show me what you have that we gave you. Did we give you that phone? Did we give you that money? Did we give you this over here? And now you're going to be like, but you all suck. Then it's like, that's not cool. That's not cool.
So if you're leaving, most of these people, the Julies of the world would contend that are coming from squalor, like it's not safe. There's gangs everywhere, whatever. So if that were you and you were in a really bad position, would you be willing to take where you were from and put it on the shelf and become part of something new that then you're rewarded once you become a participant in that new place?
Oh yeah.
It's one of the requirements. So if you come over my house, I say, take off your shoes, right? You were somewhere that wasn't at my house. So you're like, I wouldn't take off my shoes normally, but because I'm being invited, I need to take the suggestions and the rules of the place that I'm going and show them that I absolutely respect your culture. And I will do what you ask because that is my grant to get here.
And isn't it like that when you go to other countries and
yes,
other cultures?
They would not tolerate what we do here. Not
like you could go somewhere where it is required for women to be covered. And if you didn't, I bet you're going to get some pushback there.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
All right. Carter says the problem with Democrats are more concerned about the criminals instead of the victims. They do it every day. And I believe the politicians know that the political advantage they get from having all of these illegal immigration, they know what they're doing. I think the everyday people have been sold and been convinced that they are the virtuous ones who are just supporting people who are just trying to do family. So there's two arguments that are really going. I think the politicians are awful people because they're manipulating people into thinking that they're better right? They're taking on a noble cause. The regular everyday people, I almost sympathize and know that you're doing it for good reasons, but you're joining the reason that it's happening. The insiders, the people that want the chaos, have manipulated you into your position. So I'm trying to talk you out of a little bit. I want you to, here's what happens. Once we get the criminals out and all we're left with regular people, I want us to make an immigration system that picks out and poaches these people and says, hey, now that we're left with good people here, let's get you into the system and have you be out of the shadows and be a good participant. And then we both win. Criminals gone, good people still here, make use of them so they're not here scared that they're going to be the next person deported.
Yeah.
Deal? Good compromise?
I like it. Should people waving a Nazi flag or Confederate flag be deported? Are they here illegally?
It's a good question.
Then maybe. But there's two different things though. Like if they're a born and raised American citizen doing that, they're an a-hole, but you are a legal citizen.
Yeah. So if you go to Princeton and you're a citizen of the United States and you take a Palestinian flag and wave it around, you're not being deported anywhere. Yeah. You are a citizen. That is the benefit of being a citizen.
Now, if you're not a citizen and you're here illegally and you wave a Nazi flag or a Confederate flag around,
gone.
You're not gone just because of the flag. You're gone because you are here illegally and causing trouble.
Yeah. And I fear that the extension of all liberties of a citizen to people who are here on one of those permits, it should be very limited. Like if I invited a new person in and I wrote on here, hey, you're going to come here and the benefit of you come, we're going to allow you to come here is you're going to get an education, right? You don't have all the same rights as a citizen, but we're going to allow you to come in just for the specific purpose of doing citizen stuff or college stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, I would even have a stipulation that if I'm going to let you in here to take advantage of a university and maybe take a seat that a citizen would be taking if you're not here, you got to make me a promise that you're going to use that education here for like 10 years. I'm investing in you by letting you come here. Let's let you push yourself out into our economy and innovate in our economy for 10. You owe us 10 years of servitude after we give you that education. And then after the 10 years, you're free to reapply to become a citizen or go back to your country and take that education back. It's the same thing we do with like pharmaceuticals, right? If we give you money, you to do research and development, you owe us a little bit because we didn't make the investment for nothing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Show us what we got for our money.
They're saying don't threaten the people of Mexico and write us all off as criminals. They're saying don't threaten the people of Mexico. I don't think we're threatening Mexico.
Is she talking about somebody who's waving the American flag? Or waving the Mexican flag is saying don't write us all off as criminals?
I mean, how are we threatening Mexico?
I think, and Krista, correct me if I'm wrong, I think earlier you had said if you see somebody waving a flag standing on a car, what do you think? You think they're protesting and they're causing problems, when really maybe they are saying, don't write us all off, we're not criminals. Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, if I don't buy it.
Okay, yeah. She said yes, Kelin. So they're waving it in the hopes of saying, this isn't us, you know, like we're not all criminals kind of thing. Whereas they could be perceived as being a part of the problem and waving their flag, and now they look like a criminal.
I don't know. That seems like a stretch. I mean, like if a fellow protester asks, what are you doing? And you're like, oh, I just want Mexico to be respected. Yeah. Or they're like, F America, I'm claiming this car from Mexico.
Yeah, if I were not part of the riot and I were not being a criminal, I would not be there.
Right.
Leave and be like, I'm out of here. I'm not part of this madness.
Julie says, how about the F Biden flags? Because if so, my neighbor is gone. Are they a citizen?
Yeah. I don't like the F Biden things. To me, it's just a little childish and mean, and I don't think that people should have the F Biden stuff. But again, if you are a legal American citizen, you have the right to put whatever flag out you want, unless you have an HOA, and then maybe you don't. But
freaking tyrants.
Yes. But if you're here illegally causing problems.
Dennis said it always goes back to Kanye. Kanye is a loon.
It always goes back to Kanye. Hey, there's some like, what do you want to call it? There's some controversy now that Kanye may not be a loon. and that what Kanye is saying is true, and the powers that be trying to get him are making it look like
Kanye is a loon. He might be a genius, and that's cool, but he is a freaking loon.
You think he's a genius?
He's a genius, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How is he a genius?
If you ever listen to any of his interviews, like it's an element of about 20% genius, 80% looniness. And there are some really deep thoughts. But the problem is when you don't have full genius is that you misappropriate some of those thoughts that are going through your head and misattribute them to things. And so he'll make some connections or jumps really to the most outlandish thing. So he has a thread of like, oh, he's getting some insight. And then he jumps off into Looneyville. Same thing happens with Alex Jones, another genius. But then he'll go so far and rather than connect the genius dots, he goes off into Crazy Town. And wait, I do that too. Shit.
I was just gonna say, this sounds like a lot like Joe Danyi.
Damn it. Outed.
You and Kanye should hang out.
I know. There would be some great stuff here. Donnie says, I feel if you're not happy in the US, no one told you to stay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's everybody from Gen Z on. They have all the because the tyranny isn't first in your mind. You're entitled. You feel entitled. Like coming to this country is you're already due it. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to value it. You don't have to protect it. Right. Think of all the military and the early on what people were willing to fight for an ideal and give their life for their family's future. Right. Yeah. Every time the patriotic songs, I think of what people were willing to sacrifice to give it to you here. Right. Yeah. Give you what you deserve or have now. But then today's deal, like, I'm not going to go die for this country. I don't even like this country all that much. And the entitlement has gone off the cliff where I don't know how they keep a military together and have so many people willing to sacrifice for it.
Yeah, that's a big thing, too, to see all the people that sort of have these opinions, I guess, and this gall, maybe this nerve to sort of do and say things about the country, and then you sign on the dotted line of like, I'm gonna go die for you. Like, that deserves more respect than it gets. I think we are better than maybe in decades before as far as how we treat our military, but yeah, you could not pay me enough to be a member of the military or a police officer or in any position in which my life is in danger for the general public. People that do that, we cannot pay them enough. We cannot respect them enough because the majority of us, I think, are not big enough to defend. There was a house, speaking of flying flags you don't agree with, there was a house somewhere, I don't know what town it is around here, when Biden was in office, was flying their American flag upside down. Mm-hmm. And I get what they meant. I don't like that. Because, again, if you don't like it, you can leave. The upside down flag is for a more specific purpose. And to use it because you just don't like the president right now, to me, was a little unwarranted. But then I say, but you have the right to do that. People died for your right to do that. They died for your right to fly whatever flag you want, to say whatever you want, to disagree with whatever you want. So that's the way you want to do it. That's the way you want to do it.
Well, that's free speech. They can, right. They're communicating that they're displeased with their country, and you're communicating that I think you're an idiot and you shouldn't do that. That's it.
Yeah.
Free speech has been woven.
Yeah.
Right? Both sides. Be as mean as you want because they're giving you the middle finger and saying, I hate the political climate so much, I'll disrespect my country. And I always say, I love my country and would do anything for my country.
Yeah.
I despise my government and would do nothing for my government. Nothing unless they point a gun at me. And that's how they're going to get me to be compliant.
That's scary.
Mm-hmm. And they, trust me, they do that.
Yeah.
Pay your taxes or you go to jail. That's pointing a gun at me.
That's true. Dennis says, wave your flag. That's one thing. Don't burn the American flag at the same time. Yeah, that's very taboo in this country to burn the American flag. But is it illegal?
Well, it depends. Burning the flag is not illegal. Burning it on a city street, where if I can take a
Open flame.
if I can take a cardboard box and I can legally burn it, then you can burn your flag in the space that you can burn things.
Yeah.
On a street, if I picked the cardboard box and went down on a sidewalk and lit it on fire, would I get a ticket? Might I be arrested? Or at the very least, would I say, you just endangered the public by lighting something on fire? That part's illegal. Burning the flag in the proper place is not illegal. It's an expression of your politics, but do it appropriately. Do it legally.
Julie says, America, love it or leave it. Don't dare try to make it better. That it?
No, absolutely make it better. So what?
That's an example of taking things that are said and going that's not what people meant. Sorry, go on.
All right, so
I hate when that
let's take my motto here. Okay. Love my country and love my government. What would my government have to change into in order for me to say I love my country and I love my government?
What would they have to change?
What would they have to do? Like, what do you think the typical person, in order to have adoration and actually celebrate how great your government is, what it would have to look like? Paint a little bit.
There would have to be no corruption.
Okay.
They would have to have integrity. They would be law-abiding, rule-following citizens like the rest. They would be held to the same accountability as any other citizen. They would be servants, not power-hungry. It's not, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to stay in power. It's, I'm going to do what's right and serve the people. Selflessness. There can't be lying and cover-ups and things of that nature. You probably shouldn't have a fund that is simply dedicated to paying off people to lie for you or to sweep under the rug something immoral that you did. Am I on the right track?
Well, no, those are really good things. I have a simpler version of that. Okay. So what I believe in my country, right? What I believe is the spirit, the ideal of what the country is. The government sees those ideals and they make workarounds so they can get away with things. So let's just say it is a spirit of prosperity or a spirit of honesty or a spirit of integrity. Or if you read the founding documents, what was important to the people who engineered what the country was to become. And if you're a politician and you get a sense for what all of those things mean, and even if your interests or your party are threatened because of the ideals in the founding documents or that great technology that is the Constitution, I would respect it enough to say, you know what, I'm going to respect that document, not try to work around and promote myself and my principles in support of that document, rather than the other way, trying to say, you know what, these guys really felt like tyranny was going to be an issue. The factions were going to be mob rule. You know what, this thing that I'm voting on right now doesn't do full tyranny, but it edges us close to tyranny. So rather than holding my nose and taking tyranny light, I'm not going to do this at all because I respect that document so much. I don't want 1 inch closer to tyranny. I'm going to go in the other direction. More liberty, right? More freedoms, right?
Yeah. Being selfless, being that it's not about you and what you're going to accomplish and you staying in power and your party being the winning team. It's what's right, what should be done. And we'll do that regardless of we get the praise for it or we get the recognition for it or not.
Yeah, for sure. Julie says, so this regime is the antithesis of what you hate. I am not, again, every government in the last 25 years since I've been paying attention have not been examples of something that I've been proud of. I will say that I hate all government. I don't care who the president is. I don't care what the Congress is. My opinion on people, ideas of the day do not make me a fan. If tomorrow Epstein list comes out and they say everybody in government goes to prison, I would say, yes, we get to start over with people who aren't all pedophiliac, if that's a word. Scrap it. No, fans of none of them. I assure you that if there's justice to be done, I don't care who it applies to.
Yep. Dennis says, I want to live in Kelin's utopia. Sounds great. Doesn't it though? Doesn't it?
But here, the engineering of the Constitution is great. When you read this literature, the Federalist Papers, they all refer to the fallibility, just like the Bible, the fallibility of mankind. And it's not that we need people who are saints. We have government that washes out when people go in the wrong direction. We have government that self-corrects, and it's honest about that self-correcting, where we made a boo-boo by putting a person in there that was corrupt, but we have the integrity to wash out the corruption, not to lay down cover fire for that corruption. We're the government now that if it's our party, right, we cover for the corruption, right? Just like the Catholic Church did the exact same thing. If the Catholic Church is like, we hired this priest and they did a lot of bad things, so we put them on an island all by themselves so they can, I would have respect for the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
But if they're like, oh, he's one of ours, and that's bad optics, and that looks really bad, so we'll just self-contain, hide it from the public, and call that some kind of virtue, big mistake as far as I'm concerned.
So speaking of this idea of, is it possible for us to just start over? Mom and dad are fighting, Trump and Musk.
Yes.
And I feel like, are the kids now having to either, one, pick a side, who you're going to go with? But how do you feel? Have you seen the post? I think Elon made it about, can we now just start a new party that represents the 80%? What are your thoughts about now truly gaining maybe some momentum, possibly, for a brand new party that is somehow more middle ground? What does that look like? Do you think it can be done? And who's going to be part of this party?
Okay, so a populist movement has to be very, I've already in the blind. I have taken my libertarianism and I've shelved it. I am now part of the American Party. No political
party.
So if a third party can use a spokesperson like Elon Musk to capture the 80%, I am all on board. Even if all it does, even if it's a nothing thing, but it takes power and control away from Democrats and Republicans, I am all for it. We need something that disrupts the status quo, for sure.
And a way to sort of try to start fresh, try to fight corruption, do what's right. Who would you like it's a draft? Who do we want on our team in this American Party? I know who I want.
All right. I'm going with Rand Paul.
I was going to say him.
Seriously?
Yep.
All right.
I was gonna say
Rand Paul,
yep.
who gets in the way of status quo work on the regular, not afraid. I trust the fact that he's not afraid to stand up to any interest whatsoever. If you're a Republican, he's an annoyance because he's not on your team and he's very adamant about not supporting something that he really doesn't support. That honesty is absolutely necessary.
Yep. RFK Jr.
That's a different. I don't
Come
know
on,
if
we can bring Bobby on our team.
I don't know that he'd be a good fit.
Listen, we're gonna. Okay, maybe probationary on our team.
No, I'm not.
Listen,
he was squarely on a team, and the only reason he went to another team is because they turned on him. So he's sort of like he's on a visa.
But Rand Paul was on a team and still able to say
no, but his actions every day show that instead. Okay, so he's squarely on a team and he flies in the face of that team. RFK Jr., whatever team he is, he's all in on that team. He has a hard time pressing against the team that he's on. He stays loyal to whatever tribe that he's on. Rand Paul is a bomb thrower when it comes to not being liked by his own party. And I like that. I'm not afraid to say things. Even like Elon would be a good deal, right? It would be very easy for him to say, oh, no, that bill that's going to overspend by $2 trillion, that's a really big, beautiful bill. And just for niceness, just go along with it, right?
Yeah, like people, even if you weren't for Trump and Elon, you got to admit, even though they were buddy and so close, the moment something went awry and Elon was like, that's wrong. I think that's wrong. He said it. He didn't just say, well, I sort of
I have respect. I have respect.
Yes, me too. Okay, so Elon, Rand Paul. What about Tulsi?
Tulsi's with RFK. I mean, I would say she's ahead of RFK because I think but see, whenever I hear somebody and get to know her when she was a Democrat or when she's now a Republican, and I compare whether or not they've metamorphosized, right, during that transition, she stayed pretty true on what she supports. There's some language that if I played it today, you'd be a little bit surprised how she was playing the Democrat game because she was a politician there. So that would be a rougher one than Rand Paul.
It's is going to be hard.
Yeah, there's very few. There are very few that I would pick out of the crop, today's crop.
Hmm.
John Fetterman might be one of those ones.
Oh.
Now I would give him a 20-80 split. He's 80% Democrat, but man, he can talk about something he believes in and get lots of, hate from his side for sure.
Yeah. I feel like we've missed a whole bunch of.
Let's
start with Krista, maybe. Sorry, guys, we got on our draft.
Okay. Krista says the Constitution was written full well knowing that people of different cultures and religions would come to the States, and there needs to be a degree of respect for the melting pot. But you have people in government insisting that we are strictly a Christian country. When I hear it referred to, it's more Christian principles than traditional Christian religion. And the Christian principles means that you carry ideals ahead of self, right? And that's what Christian principles, when the, everybody who spoke of the intertwinings of religion and government, they refer to the principles that are illustrated within that religion. And I think that line between those two things, the separation between those things, gets confusing to some certain people. So Christian ideals for sure.
Julie says, Kelin, how do you feel about the Maha report with made up studies? So no surprise here. I've heard two conflicting stories on this. Obviously, one side is saying they completely made up studies, and the other side is saying not made up studies, study that contained an error. Error was corrected, not a made up study. So that's just something I would have to look more into. If I had to guess, I would not lean towards the idea that there was some sort of corruption. I would lean towards the idea that there was an error, and one side took a potential error and ran with it being a lie or a made up or whatever.
Well, I didn't hear about this. What was the study?
And again, I haven't read all that far into it yet either, but supposedly there were some left news sources that were like bashing RFK Jr. saying that Maha cited studies in some of their documents that were made up. And it was out of like hundreds, I think it was hundreds of studies.
Oh, so I remember that. Yeah.
Were made up.
Of the 52, 7 of them had stuff
like that.
Yeah. No doubt that the interest for pharma is going to poke holes in it and whatever.
The press secretary then, of course, says these weren't made up. There was an error that was made. And when corrected, is still a study. And it's depending on what side of the aisle you fall on, you word that differently.
Okay.
So I don't know a whole lot more else about that.
Sheldon Whitehouse, that's a good pick. Joe Manchin, that's another good pick. Oh my God, the Maha report, a horrible use of AI. Check out the platform called Open Evidence. It's problematic. But, and here's where I want you to carry. Okay, so this is what we do, right? Yep. You see a poll that you like, right? And it's solid. You see a poll that you dislike, and you're like, oh, polls could be manipulated. You see a study and you like it, like the COVID studies, the environmentalism studies, all these studies that prove your point. All of a sudden, it's pure, right?
Yeah.
What do you want to bet? And they did a little experiment where somebody made up what's that called? We'll say a scientific study. They published a peer-reviewed gibberish to see if they could enter their stuff into the system to see if it could go through or would get rejected by peer review. What do you think happened? Do you think it made it
through?
It went through.
Oh,
it absolutely went through. So across the board, every study you read has the potential for an interest to inject. Even our enemies could inject studies that are BS, right?
Yeah.
That poison the studies that are not BS. So here's what you have to do as someone reading studies. If you rejected all of findings based on the number of bad made up fictitious parts of the studies, then you have no information, because I can conduct a study right now and totally poison that pot in any direction that you want. Okay. Yeah. So I've seen a study over global climate change, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look, the study was about the increase in temperature over the last 100 years. And specific, I'm like, why did they stop? Why did the study begin at 100 years? And then so I looked at 500, 1,000, 10,000 years. And you know what the chart looks like on 1,000-year study versus a 100-year study? It looks like it's not dramatic, right?
Yeah.
It looks like it's not as impressive. But if I just move my thing, my chart up to right this moment right now, it goes straight up. And so when I release the study, the impression that the person's going to get on the other part is like, holy shit, it's going up. That's going to mean something. But if I backed it off just maybe 100 years, now you'd be like, oh, this looks like there's no anomaly here. This looks like a regular fluctuation in temperatures. So the person doesn't, and that chart data would be 100% accurate. You wouldn't be able to contend that it was inaccurate, but the context of the limited amount of information that I gave you skewed what you'd take away from my study. So that's why as a consumer of study information, which I do it all the time, you almost have to be a skeptic and look at what was omitted from the information might be just as valuable as the stuff you were presented with.
Did you see the thing recently? I can't remember where I saw it, but it was talking about like the study that was discussing the efficacy of the COVID vaccine. And they used the phrase 95% and what that actually meant, because everybody else reading that who's not a scientist, who's not somebody who's been studying this, would think it's 95% effective. And that's not at all what it meant. And it was like saying how really it's gives you like a 1% shot and all this stuff. But it was talking about this was measured instead of this being measured. And that's why they can claim that. And there's all kinds of different things that, like you said, depending on what was actually studied, who funded it, how it was worded, you can get all kinds of different bits of information and conclusions from it. But what I find so interesting is people trying to push back against the MAHA movement by citing all these studies when nobody even cared about studies until the MAHA movement. To me, that is why I'm all for it. It's not, oh, I like this politician, or I like these politics, or I like this team. It's this whole MAHA has brought to light things like this, that studies can be corrupt or can be biased. That information.
Okay, so let's just use the military as an example, because they want to get shit right. There are people that die if they get something wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So they use intelligence. They use information about your enemies. They know that people are going to try to skew them and give them bad information to see if they'll react to it. And they're going to give them, information that's meant to manipulate on the other side. So what does the military do? The military takes all of the information, but they have their own people, right, that aren't captured, aren't trying to make things go sideways.
Yeah.
If you're an administration, where are you getting your studies from? You're getting your studies from universities who are captured. You're getting it from science community who's captured. You're getting it from pharmaceuticals captured. So if I'm the president, I am not going to take studies that are in the scientific community, because the scientific community have been corrupted by either capitalism, right, by our enemies, or by the interests of, whatever, pharmaceuticals and the medical establishment.
Yeah.
So I would, and just like, for instance, do you remember when George W. Bush did the weapons of mass destruction, all the information and data that he got from there? So he got it wrong. They didn't have weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
But do you remember how it was presented?
That it was a thing and we got these weapons of mass destruction that we have to deal. It was very factual sounding.
Okay. So the end was they wanted to attack. Part of the military industrial complexes, they wanted to attack, right? There was lots of contractors that they were going to make a lot of money if we attacked and got into another war. They like war because they make a ton of money during war, right? So Iraq was given at a certain point years ago things that would be considered weapons of mass destruction. So if I came to you and said, hey, I want to let you know, Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. And my question would be, do they still have these weapons? Were they, through some of the exercises of the disposal of this material, did they get it? And they're like, don't worry about that part, right? I got a paper that says there's weapons of mass destruction. It is accurate. The study is accurate. In this day, they were given weapons of mass destruction. You don't have an example of them not having it anymore. So mine rules, right? And then Bush was like, okay, well, let's go invade. And this is assuming that he wasn't in on the grift. Okay. So this role playing is just how that could go over. But then afterwards, they're like, oh, they didn't have weapons of mass destruction like we thought, but we're already here, and we invaded over something that was inaccurate. Well, that was a study somebody presented. So we have administrations that are executing policy based on captured institutions that manipulate them to doing anything. So you don't think the Maha movement, as radioactive as it isn't going to have its detractors that are trying to soil it and make sure that it's ineffective? Of course. So if I'm in the Maha movement, I'm not going to predicate any of my decisions on studies that weren't done by me. That's it. I'm in my group. I'm going to have my policy wing and I'm going to have my research wing. And I'll take your study from Harvard University or whatever, but I'm not buying anything because that thing is marketing material trying to get me to do something. And I'm going to do like the military where I'm going to really pick it apart before I just act on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Maha used AI to produce the report. The studies didn't exist. Maybe. I don't know. Julie says, Joe, I urge you to watch the Jon Stewart interview with Carol Codwaller on Palantir and AI. Love to get your take on it.
Yes, I saw the reference over the weekend. And I didn't know anything about it, so I will watch that. I will watch it because I want to know what it's about. The press secretary or somebody made a reference to it, and I just didn't have anything about it. Donnie said, are you talking about Youngstown? Every time we turn around, they are doing a study. I'm telling you, studies are big business. So and capitalists, really get a bad reputation, right? Because exploitative and corrupt, and they're just in it for the money. And then you see all of these other things like universities, and somehow they're segmented out where the business end of what they do are sometimes ignored, that they're just doing it for the money, getting you to take courses that you don't need, getting a slope into, tuitions that somebody else pays for, the research dollars that are endless and don't have to have any merit at the end of them. Like, this is just an industry of itself. So if I'm going to punch pharmaceutical industry for taking advantage of people and spreading disinformation, I'm going to punch universities for what is their product? Freaking studies.
Yeah, it's not like they're lily white just because they're a university.
Yeah, you think that they are, but it's a business, and they're producing studies to make money, doing research to make money, endless government grants to make money.
Yeah.
Let's see. That's the problem with medicine being under the microscope in the political sphere. It's so easy to misinterpret studies. So the Maha movement is blasting people with studies people don't understand.
But okay, here's the thing. Here's why I like the Maha movement. You don't have to understand the studies, and you don't have to understand who put them on and who paid for them or who whatever, but you can easily understand the idea, the concept of get healthier to avoid problems. So if everybody is fighting about insurance, is insurance a scam? Do we have the right to have insurance? Is insurance too expensive? Is insurance corrupt? Get healthier, less reliable on insurance. It's, oh, I can't trust my doctors, or should we trust the Health and Human Services secretary, or should I trust this, or I don't know if I should take this drug or that drug, and I don't know if this is going to be safe. Get healthier so you don't have to rely on that. Like, why is it a fight to even address the concept that if you are healthy, if you eliminate toxins from your diet and things that are unsafe, and you move your body more, and you try to get off of medications that may not be necessary for you, and you do all these things to have a healthier body so that you don't have to rely on the other organizations of which everyone is fighting about, that's not a study. That is easily understood.
Well, the trend is that I have no idea where if you put on your mission statement that you think that everybody's going to be behind you. Why Democrats are so entrenched in this that they will fight for the cancer. Yeah. If you said, let's make people healthy, like, what's your other theory? Are you saying they're not really trying to make sure people are healthy? Fill in the dot. Like, what are they trying? If they're not trying to make people healthy, what are they trying to do?
Yeah, they don't want to make people healthy. They just want to take their rights away.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
Right. And it's like, I don't get it. Like, they're almost like the movement of common sense, like exercise, eat right, avoid toxins, be healthy, so that you don't have to rely on corrupt organizations to keep you well when you're sick. And there's pushback. Why was there pushback? I don't get it. Krista says, I just lost it. She moved. Because who has the final say in what makes you healthier to avoid those things?
If you look back at last 5 years, is trust the science. And what does science say about making people healthier? Exercising, not eating a bunch of sugars. There's pretty, like Kelin said, common sense. We know what it is to be healthy, and it doesn't include selling lots of drugs to make you healthy.
Yeah. And Krista says also not everyone can just get healthy. I am not talking about the the groups in the public that have serious issues, genetic diseases, things of that nature can make it more difficult, obviously. I'm talking about the people who have every ability to get healthier, to change what their diet consists of, to move their body more, to avoid taking drugs that they don't need. There is the majority that is able to get healthy, or at least healthier than they were. And instead of doing that, they want to fight like that's not a good thing to do. Like, well, I don't want someone to tell me I should do that. Or I don't know. I don't know what the pushback is.
It's not common sense. So you're on the Titanic, right?
Yeah.
There's 2,000 people on the Titanic. You can only fit 1,000 on lifeboats, right? And so Krista says, hey, we can't save anybody, so F it. Let's just all go down, right? If you could take a portion of the people, might not be everybody, and get them healthier. And again, if there's a competing theory for what they're really trying to do by making people healthy, then share it. But so far, you have people say, we're unhealthy and it's costing us a lot and people are suffering, so let's make everybody healthy again. That seems very probable that is the mission statement and why they are doing what they're doing. If you think it's like, no, really, they want to kill everybody and they want to take all their food so everybody starves. Cool. Give me evidence that that's what you think is happening and show me something that supports that they're trying to kill people through starvation. Otherwise, it's more likely that you have reasonable people that are trying to make a portion of the of people healthier. That seems likely.
And it's like, and take your own accountability. You know, I feel like we could see in the average American household any day what happens. Parents see a kid get sick, sniffly nose, coughing, runny nose. Oh my gosh, someone in our household is now sick. So typically, I bet, what's the conversation? Oh, no, I'm going to get sick. I might miss work. Oh, we haven't met our deductible. How am I going to afford this? Now I have to miss work, lose out on money, spend money to go to the doctors. Then while you're sitting there, you're probably going to catch some other germ. There's going to be this issue. I have to pay for a prescription, and I don't know if I can afford that. I don't even know if I can get into the doctor. So while I'm waiting to get into the doctor, I'm home with a sick kid. I'm missing work, and it's this whole spiral of crappiness, and you're like, oh my God, what's wrong with our system? What's wrong with our government? What's wrong with our healthcare that I am now stuck in this spiral? Or someone in my household is showing sick symptoms. What are we going to do? We're going to wash our hands. We're going to not touch our face. We're going to up the fruits and vegetables. We're going to up the vitamins. We're going to make sure that we're not taking in things that feed viruses like sugar and carbohydrates. We're going to make sure that we get plenty of sleep and we're going to bed tonight. We're going to make sure we do all these things. We're going to stay healthy. We're going to guard ourselves. But no, that's not the conversation.
Because the majority will do all of that and still get sick. So don't even bother because it's not everybody.
Don't even bother.
All or nothing.
I did it and I still got sick.
I had to sacrifice and do all the right healthy things and I still got sick. So screw you. I'm not getting sick. So it's self-defeating. It's not even reasonable. Like, it frustrates me.
The Maha movement is scrubbing research. So someone who wants to get healthy can't get the information. Oh, it went away. Come back. Okay. So someone who wants to get healthy can't get the information they feel like they should have access to.
Dude, I've been studying this for years. There is not a lack of, if I type in Google, how do I get healthy? It's not going to say information not found. I don't know. It is suspiciously missing.
What do? I don't like people don't know that
See,
fruits and vegetables over candy is going to be a better choice. That working out, lifting weights, and going for a walk is better than sitting on the couch
off the charts craziness. And you think my conspiracy theories are crazy? That right there, if you want health, so this is the theory: all health information is going to be gone, so everyone will be unhealthy, and they masked it in the "Make America Healthy Again," only to kill everyone through a lack of information. Everybody's not going to know.
If you want to point fingers at anybody scrubbing information so you don't have access, that's the pharmaceutical company's job.
All right, Chris, I'm sorry. I'm just annoyed, and I'm taking it out on you.
We're not mad at you, Chris.
No,
we're mad at pharmaceuticals.
I mean, I did mock you, and I apologize for that, but sorry.
And I don't think this is maybe even Krista's thing. Maybe Chris is just sort of saying what other people would say.
Yeah, right.
The devil's advocate. And like GLP-1s and Ozempic and things of that nature, that everyone's like, take this because you're overweight, because maybe you can't get up and move. Maybe you can't do anything until you have this. But what ultimately is still going to happen? Is it going to affect your muscles? Is it going to affect anything else that might make you sick in another aspect? What do you have to do while you are taking this? Do you have to change your diet? Do you have to maybe adopt an exercise regimen? Do you have to do all these other things? That's common sense. That's information. But do you think anybody pushing that drug is going to tell you that? Is anybody pushing the medication going to say, by the way, this is meant to be temporary because you have gotten to this point, you maybe need some help, take this drug, but then get off of it and alter your lifestyle so you never need the drug again?
No, if they could sell you a lifetime supply of that drug and you're a customer forever, why there's no disincentive or incentive to get off of it.
And then when you have a problem because you were on it too long, here's another drug for that problem.
Yep. If everyone was healthy, the government would have no money. That is true. So the Make Americans Sick as Hell group has done very well to make everybody it's programming at this point. We do everything and fight for not change of lifestyle, not changing the things that you consume and getting addicted to the pharmaceuticals that they're willing to sell you. So yes, I want the facts, real facts. Eat fat, don't eat fat. The food pyramid is now upside down. Give me real facts and real. Give me facts and real studies. I can only go by the predominant wisdom today, and it's all been skewed and bastardized. So you have to.
Which again is another need for a Maha movement. Is let's look at really works. Let's look at how things should be. But I gotta say, whether the food pyramid is upside down or right side up, whether you don't know how many grams of fat you should eat in a day versus how many carbs you should have, you cannot argue that if you generally adopt a well-balanced diet and exercise, you're going to be infinitely better than junk food, fast food, candy, sweets, and a sedentary lifestyle.
And honestly, this is what blows my mind. It's that all or nothing that we've been referring to. It's since I have two pieces of missing information, I won't do the common sense stuff that I know absolutely. So it's like, yes, I know I'm sipping on an ice cream, but I don't know my balance of healthy and not fats. So I'm going to keep eating this ice cream. So you could tell me the thing that doesn't matter is the 1% outlier that I don't know. I'm gonna do all the unhealthy things until you can tell me.
Yeah,
that sounds like a fallible human being that wants justification to continue doing the wrong thing because they don't like being told what to do.
I don't count macros. I am not a personal trainer. I don't know how different things affect the body. Joe knows. So if you do want an in-depth, he can give you that information. But I can make the common sense assessment that like, well, Greek yogurt, is dairy good for everyone? Probably not. Can dairy maybe be inflammatory and cause some inflammation? There's some studies out there that says yes. But if it's Greek yogurt or chocolate pudding, you know what's the choice there. If it's
can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes.
This information gets us kicked off. You know that?
It does. Which is ridiculous.
The people that are watching right now, I want to let you know, if you want to talk about scrub studies, you could take information that people could hear and get informed. And all of the platforms, when you start talking about health, nutrition, anything that's against the pharmaceuticals, people that are watching live right now are the only ones that will see this because this information goes no further. So I cut you off because you're talking to a crowd that's not going to be there. And we tried a couple times to mask the language, but you've open the genie's bottle. And now this whole segment goes in to nothingness because you don't need to learn about health.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, it's the Maha movements, right? It's that person's fault. It's that group's fault that we don't have information on health. What about the fact that as an American people, as viewers of podcasts and social media, the fact that we're even telling you common sense ways to get healthier, this content will be pushed out of your algorithm.
And so RFK Jr., before he used to talk about health things too, and the same rules applied to him, right? Now he has a platform that can't be controlled, that he talks about healthy stuff like don't eat ice cream, and they can't shut him up because now he's in the position of authority. So if you don't see the system works against healthy talk, things to get better, prosperities and whatever, and they want you to be sick and dying and dependent on them. If you don't see that theme on everything that the government and our policies do,
the all or nothing mindset, just like it's like, oh, well, I don't know all my macros. I might as well not even attempt to change my lifestyle. It's, oh, well, I don't know who's a good protester and who's a bad protester, who's a good illegal immigrant and who's a murderer illegal immigrant. So let's fight.
We can't
over
arrest
that.
anybody.
Yeah, it better be nothing now. And I don't know what benefits or who should be on benefits and who shouldn't be having these benefits. So let it all go. It's like all we're doing is being polarized and fighting over everything. And who's laughing all the way to the bank? The government. Because we will fight each other before we fight them.
Okay, Krista says, okay, Michelle Obama pushed for healthier lifestyles for kids, but she's such a boogeyman. No, I think, I don't know. I don't remember a whole lot other than kids were throwing away their lunches. Do you remember that?
And that's the shame is you can take someone of any political party and maybe they truly are an advocate for health and wellness, but then government policies get involved and funding for schools now are tied to food programs, which are tied to what's considered a healthy choice for a kid. And then is the kid going to throw it away anyways? And it gets more complicated. And then she gets painted as the boogeyman.
Yeah. But if Michelle Obama was in a position like RFK Jr., then it could be tied to the things that are under her control. She couldn't control what the kids ate. And in theory based that if you put it in schools that assume the kids are going to eat it, and when it didn't, it was bad optics for her because it wasn't effective. Yeah. But if you're like, I'm going to ban pharmaceutical commercials, you could do that. And then people don't see it. And there's an effectiveness in what you're in control. But Michelle Obama just didn't have the ability or the power to do anything of substance, and just like Nancy Reagan and the drug campaign. So,
yeah. Krista says payers won't pay for GLP-1 unless you're doing those other things.
Someone
beg to differ. I know people on Ozempic that ain't doing crap, but taking Ozempic.
Yeah.
There's literally no change in diet except maybe eating less because of the appetite suppressant.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how it should be. That ain't how it is.
Yep. This is how they control people. And that's really politically, like you have an idea for what the strategy of the opposition is. And when you see doing things, you can't help but to say, exactly, hey, we need to control the apparatus, the function of government. So they create NGOs. All right, that makes complete sense. We need more Democrat voters. So you let a bunch of legals in who are likely to vote for you. Okay, that makes sense. We need people to give us more function in government. So let's make everybody sick. So there depends. It all makes sense. So the overall thing is we have liberty. We're all self-sustaining. We don't need the government. We don't need handouts. The government's like, hey, why don't you need us? And they're like sitting around that evil minion boardrooms thinking, how can we make people love us more and need us more? You would do everything that you're doing right now to make a more dependent society. So if you want to get close to tyranny and you have freedoms, it's like when you don't need you have lots of freedoms. When we all of a sudden have something that's so gargantuanly big that we can't do it for ourselves. Oh, Mr. Government, will you do this for me? And Dennis is right. You absolutely need the control of government because you made the problem so big, people can't do it on their own. And then you make them less capable of doing anything on their own. They have to give you all of their liberties.
Yeah. Krista, are they paying out of pocket? No. I know someone whose insurance is paying for Ozempic and they're not doing a dang thing to make them a healthier lifestyle. I'm sure the doctor reported it as patient needs this for this reason. And they've also tried this, and this, but I know they are not That's all you gotta do is say, well, I'm saying that they're trying this. They're not. I don't talk about everybody. I'm talking about the person I know.
We talk about we refer to this thing. I'll tell you, this thing doesn't exist. We value certain things as being noble and pure, right? The election integrity and the science and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we were a good society, we would take things, and when we see the value of that thing being eroded, we would stand up for it and say, I'm going to love my government when it sees what this thing should be, and it will not tolerate something that is not it. That's what I refer to as the spirit of the rule, or the spirit of the ideal. So let's just say we want to trust our doctors. We want to be them. We don't want them to be sellouts for pharmaceuticals. We want them to make good decisions. And so, back when marijuana was by license only, it was medical only, whatever, I put an application in for weed to see how much they dug. Like, recreational wasn't allowed, so you have to need it.
Yeah.
So I went on the website and I paid $50 and I filled out the application, and a doctor came on the screen and said, why do you need this? And I was like, and I looked at the list of things that they give it for,
I'm
right?
anxious.
They publish the things that you need to say in order to get this.
Man.
And I said, I get headaches sometimes, right? And he's like, okay, cool. I'm going to send you this email. Go off and sign off on it. You have your license. That was the interaction. So somebody who experienced like the devaluing of what a medical professional could do and should do, then ruins the trust that you have for that industry across the board. Yeah. Because if then a pharmaceutical rep came in there, and that same type of doctor could be like, I'm just going to play the role here. I know what I have to do to get the stipend for this, Ozempic. I know what I have to tell them to do or say that they're doing. The whole system falls apart because why? The founding fathers said all people are fallible, right? And so everything is going to be eventually corrupt. And so that medical is going to be corrupt, science is going to be corrupt, studies are going to be corrupt, people are going to be corrupt. And building that into the equation of how to keep things pure is really the only way to push against it and create that pressure.
Yeah. Krista says, so the MAHA movement needs to strengthen audits so doctors don't lie to fraud payer systems. Yep. I think
take the incentive out completely.
Yeah. I think they should focus on audits instead of pulling info from CDC because of key ideology words like gender. So here's the thing. They try to stop corruption. They try to do different things to make it so that, I don't know, things make sense or things aren't being corrupt or people aren't on unnecessary medications. And then what gets reported? Oh, they're cutting necessary medications for people. They're taking our meds. They're anti-vax. They're dangerous. And it's like, no, because they tried to end the needlessness of it.
But you just have that whole group of people that will fight for the disease rather than the solution. And so like you can't have an objective CDC release something and then everybody buy it in principle, because literally, if you would have asked me in the year 2025, there's going to be a guy that's going to be deported and he's a gangster, child trafficker, whatever, and he's going to be deported. You would think the public are going to be like, yeah, get that guy. He's not going to go on a poster. And then I watched people who put him on a poster, tried to paint the disease in a perfect light, even in spite of all of the evidence and what we knew about this guy, defended the freaking disease. So if you don't think that they're going to defend the sugar and defend the pharmaceuticals, you're mistaken.
Yeah, because there's a whole bunch of organizations and money behind that.
Who's going to be the arbiter of what that objectivity looks like? Because if it's obvious, those people, they're going to fight for the disease.
Yeah. Oh, are we almost out? We're almost out of time.
We are. We got about 1 minute. So read these last couple questions and then we'll get out of here.
That guy giving out pot cards is a little more reasonable than the physicians that overprescribed opiates for an ingrown toenail.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see a lot of the comments. Where are they posted?
They're spread out of all over. So they're YouTube, Facebook. We just get them all consolidated in one deal.
Yeah, I just recently learned this because I would watch the show and not understand why I wasn't seeing comments either. There are multiple Facebook groups viewing. So Julie, if you're watching on like Youngstown Studios page, maybe MLO Bros have a page, maybe another one's watching. So comments are coming from theirs and you're just seeing the comments on the page that you're viewing it from.
All right, we're out of here. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Have a great one.
Have a great one.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook.